I'm going to go over your test, and I'll probably have to do it in more than one video. Let's just see how long this one is. But make sure you have your test pulled up. You can access it, remember, through your grade book. So the first one says, from a boat on the lake, the angle of elevation to the top of the cliff is 23 degrees 4 minutes. Now, I'm not sure why, but some of you missed points on this one. You got that the angle of elevation was down here, but I don't know if you just didn't read the whole problem or what, but you left off the 4 minutes. It was 23 degrees in 4 minutes, and it said if the base of the cliff is 1415 feet from the boat, so here's your boat over here, how high is the cliff? So cliff's up here, it's saying from a boat on the lake, now here's your boat, sorry. From a boat on the lake, the angle of elevation to the top of the cliff, so here's the top of your cliff, is 23 degrees 4 minutes. If the base of the cliff is 1450, so here's the base of the cliff from the boat over here, how high is the cliff? So that's what you're looking for right there. So from this angle, you have opposite and you have adjacent, which you need to make sure that you memorize those pieces for sine, cosine, and tangent. So this would be tangent since it's opposite and adjacent. So again, some of you that didn't use the 4 minutes, yours was off a little bit. So if we turn this into a proportion, I can type in my calculator tangent of 23 degrees 4 minutes. Remember that minutes is behind your angle menu on your calculator. You just type it in and multiply by 1415. X times 1 is X. So you would get approximately 603 feet for that one. So that's the answer for that one. So let's clear this one. Do the second one. The next one says from a balloon 1168 feet high. So here's my balloon. That balloon's floating up in the air, and it is 1168 feet. It's floating. The angle of depression to the ranger headquarters is 83 degrees 31 minutes. And again, some of you left out your minutes. So angle of depression means you're at the balloon and you're looking down. However, it is not the angle drawn with the vertical, which a lot of you did. Remember that angle of depression is drawn with the horizontal. So this is your angle right here. And that angle is also equivalent to this angle, so you could have drawn it down here. Those two angles have the same measure. So I could use that one down there, and since I'm trying to find, it says how far is the headquarters from a point on the ground below the balloon. I'm trying to find that, so I could use opposite and adjacent. I could again use tangent. However, instead of simply multiplying, I would end up having to do some division, because when I put a 1 under this and use a proportion, I have tangent of 88 degrees 31 minutes times x, so I get 38.6177x is equal to the 1168, and when I divide both sides by 38.6177, I get that x is approximately 30 feet. So some of you got a huge number for that one, like in the 44,000 or something like that. So number 3 says, what is the angle of elevation of the sun when a 35-foot flagpole, so here's your flagpole, 35 feet high, casts a shadow 20 feet. Shadows are on the ground, so here's your shadow. The sun is in the sky, so when you're talking about an angle of elevation of the sun, you're talking about looking up at the sun, so we will be talking about down here on the ground, and it wants to know what that angle is. So, again, opposite and adjacent, so I have tangent of my angle is 35 over 20. I think some of you put the angle in the wrong place. So if you hit inverse tangent of 35 over 20, you're going to get that the angle is roughly 60.3 degrees. So that's the answer for that one. Number 4. So number 4 says multiply and simplify. So you have cotangent of x times sine of x minus secant of x. When you multiply, you distribute. So you're going to have cotangent x times sine of x minus cotangent of x times secant of x. And you want to simplify by trying to turn everything into terms of sine and cosine if you can. That's the simplest way. So cotangent is cosine over sine, and this is times sine. Cotangent is sine over cosine, and secant is 1 over cosine. So I can cancel here, and I get cosine. The one on the bottom, let's see, I get, cotangent, again, like we said, is cosine over sine. So those two cancel, and I get 1 over sine, and 1 over sine is cosecant. So you just need to make sure that you're making your substitutions. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Number 5 gives me secant x times cotangent x plus sine x. So again, distribute, and I get secant x times cotangent of x plus secant x times sine of x. So let's make our substitution. 1 over cosine x times cotangent is cosine x over sine x plus secant is 1 over cosine x times sine x. These two cancel, and 1 over sine happens to be cosecant x. Sine over cosine happens to be tangent x. So that's as far as you can go with that one. So that takes us up through number 5. Okay, number 6. So number 6 is a binomial. Some of you are having a little trouble multiplying binomials, which should be a prerequisite skill. I might suggest that some of you go back and Google multiplying binomials, or maybe go to YouTube and type in multiplying binomials so that you could remember how you're supposed to FOIL things and multiply things when you're in just regular algebra, because this works the same way. So you're going to take sine times secant, so you have sine x times secant x, sine times cosecant, so plus sine x times cosecant x. Then you have minus cosine times secant. And you have minus cosine times cosecant. And then you start making your substitution. So we have sine x times 1 over cosine x plus sine x times 1 over sine x minus cosine x times 1 over cosine x, and then minus cosine x times 1 over sine x. Now, when you look at these, the next thing that you're going to do is start canceling things out if you can. And this is plus 1 minus 1, so that whole part goes away. And you end up with sine over cosine, and sine over cosine is tangent, minus cosine over sine, and cosine over sine is cotangent. So that's how far that one would go. So let's see, let's go clear out everything, and let's do the next one. Number 7 is sine theta times secant tangent plus cosecant plus cotangent. Now, where some of you went wrong is when you distributed, you tried to distribute the sine with the secant and the tangent. There's no addition or subtraction between secant and tangent, so the sine just gets multiplied through by both of those at the same time, not them individually. So when I distribute, I just have sine theta, secant theta, tangent theta. Straight multiplication there, plus sine times cosecant plus sine times cotangent. So again, that's where some of you went wrong. Now you start making your substitutions. So I would have sine times 1 over cosine times sine over cosine for tangent plus sine times 1 over sine for cosecant plus sine times cotangent is cosine over sine. So let's see what can cancel. Let's see. I have none of these can cancel. So I would have sine squared. Sine times sine is sine squared over cosine squared. Plus, let's see, that cancels and I would be left with 1. Plus, that cancels and I would be left with cosine theta. So let's see if we can figure out anything now. Sine squared over cosine squared is tangent squared. And if you look at your sheet, which that's an advantage that a distance learning student might have over a seated student, is that you actually have access to all those things. So you can see them. And in a seated class, I might require you to memorize certain things so that you do not have access to those things. You need to make sure you have those things in front of you and take advantage of that opportunity. Tangent squared plus 1 is secant squared. You need to make sure that you've looked at this stuff enough that you can find it quickly. Make sure that you've done the supplemental problems so that you don't have to look so hard when you're doing these problems. So again, that's number 7. And then number 8, I was checking to see if you knew your basic factoring from prerequisite courses that you might have had. Factoring is just going to keep coming back to bite you if you don't know how to do that. So you need to go back and review your factoring. You did have a lesson that had some review videos in it for those of you who might not be comfortable with factoring. This is similar to what you saw in maybe 171 or in even other courses like that, even previous courses. If I were trying to factor that one, since it's a coefficient of 1, all I need to do is find factors of 25 that add up to 10, which would be 5 and 5. So this would have been x plus 5 times x plus 5. And the way that carries over into trig is this is not an x, this is a cosine. So instead of having x plus 5 times x plus 5, you would have cosine x plus 5 times cosine x plus 5. And since I have something the same on the bottom, I cannot cancel these 5s because these things are attached by plus sign. So this is a cosine x plus 5, not a cosine x separate from a 5. If it had been multiplication, yes, you could do that. But not with addition. You have to cancel the whole term. So I'm only left with cosine x plus 5. So that's the answer to number 8. So I'm going to stop this video and go ahead and start another one so that there's not so much in each video.